The roast hadn't even been carved when Jacob leaned back in his chair, eyes gleaming with the smugness of a man drunk on his own voice, and said loud enough for the entire table, "So Thomas, tell me, what does it feel like to keep failing at everything you try?" The silverware paused mid-air, conversation froze in polite horror, and I smiled. Not because it was funny, but because he had no idea he just gifted me the one moment I've been waiting for. My name's Thomas Whitaker. I'm not flashy, I'm not loud, and I've never needed a spotlight to prove I exist. I'm the type of man who pays attention, who shows up on time, who carries the heavy boxes when no one else volunteers. The kind of man who gets written off because he doesn't shout to be heard. But there comes a point when silence stops being strength and starts being submission. And tonight that line got crossed. I was married into the Calder family for 6 years before I finally realized I'd never really been let in. To them, I was always the guy Melissa married. Never Thomas the builder or Thomas the creator. Just Thomas the tolerable. And at Christmas dinner, I became Thomas the failure. Now to be clear, I had a job. A stable, respectable job in systems architecture. A good salary. No debt. No mess. But that wasn't good enough for people like Jacob. See, Jacob Calder came out of the womb ready to sell something. He wore tailored suits to family brunches. His car had its own Instagram account. He drank aged bourbon and referred to himself in the third person when drunk enough. He worked in commercial real estate and considered everyone outside of sales a lower species. And for 6 years, he never missed an opportunity to remind me how successful he was. Which was ironic, because he was still paying off the wedding his wife insisted on, still leasing everything he owned, still living in the house I paid off. Let me explain that part. 2 years ago, I bought a modest 3-bedroom in Westlake. It was my name on the deed, my money on the table. But when Melissa's parents started slipping into debt and Jacob's marriage began cracking from the pressure of keeping up appearances, I offered it to her family, to live in rent-free. No strings, no interest, because I thought love looked like sacrifice. Turns out it looked more like target practice. Back to Christmas. The table was dressed like a lifestyle magazine. White candles, green pine garlands, silver accents. Everyone pretending things were perfect, until Jacob opened his mouth. "So Thomas, tell me, what does it feel like to keep failing at everything you try?" He grinned wide, like a man who knew the cameras were rolling. He even chuckled after, as if it was all in good fun. But his eyes were daring me to react. I put down my fork slowly, wiped the corner of my mouth, and smiled like I'd just been handed permission to finally speak. "That's an interesting question, Jacob," I said calmly. "Let's talk about failure then." The table went quiet. Even Melissa turned toward me like she wasn't sure what was about to happen. Failure feels like selling your car, so your sister didn't have to take out a loan for her surgery. Failure feels like wiring money to your parents' account every month to keep their lights on while you brag about flying first class to Vegas. Failure feels like buying a house outright and letting people live in it because you thought that's what family did for each other. His grin twitched. I wasn't done. And you want to know the real kicker? I resigned from my job last month. Not because I was fired, not because I couldn't handle it, but because I'm building something that's mine. Something you'll hear about soon enough when you're scrambling to figure out how I did it without ever needing to wear a damn Rolex. Jacob leaned forward. His voice dropped half an octave, trying to salvage control. "Wow, all right, man, if you're going to make Christmas awkward, that's on you. I was just joking. You're always so sensitive, Jesus. You think you're the only one who's helped out around here. Come on, Melissa, tell him he's overreacting." I didn't look at her. I kept my eyes on him. You don't get to dress up disrespect as humor and then act shocked when someone finally calls you on it. You've been disrespecting me for years because I didn't play your status game. Because I don't post pictures of steak and stock portfolios on LinkedIn. Because I don't need to pretend I'm happy. Jacob tried to laugh, but his voice cracked. "Dude, whatever, this is not the time." "No, Jacob," I said. "This is exactly the time. You've had the floor for 6 Christmases now. This one's mine." I stood up. The chair legs dragged against the polished floor. I looked down the table. "You all can stay in this house for 1 more month," I said. "After that, it's going on the market. I'm done paying to be humiliated by people I once called family." Melissa gasped. Her father blinked like someone just slapped him awake. Her mother reached for the wine like it was a life raft. Jacob stood, too, now face flushed. But no words came out, because there was nothing left to say. I walked out into the cold with nothing but my coat and a plan that finally had nothing holding it back. And for the first time in years, I felt free. The next morning, I woke up in my old apartment, a one-bedroom in the quieter end of Eastmore. No exposed brick, no rooftop view, but the kind of silence that let you hear your own thoughts again. I didn't check my phone. Didn't need to. There were already missed calls from Melissa, texts from her mother, a single voice memo from Jacob titled Man to Man that I deleted without listening. It wasn't rage that had driven me out of that house. It was clarity. I had spent too many years performing peace for people who mistook my quiet for weakness. I showered, shaved, and opened my laptop. Time to build. For the last 2 years, I've been working on a platform. Not just another app. Not another startup with buzzwords and burn rates. This was different. A private freelance network for high-skilled tech contractors. Built by someone who knew what those people really needed. Real pay. Real privacy. Real ownership. I called it Ghost Line. No profiles. No resumes. Just reputation and verified work. No investors. No middlemen. No Jacob. The back end was already built. What I needed now was traction. I spent the first 3 weeks emailing every solo dev, AI engineer, cybersecurity analyst I'd met through work or online. Most ignored me. Some asked questions. 3 said yes. It was enough. Melissa didn't move out right away. She sent long messages. Most of them were half apologies laced with, "But you didn't tell me, and this isn't how adults behave." I answered every one with respect and finality. "I still love you," I said once. "But I won't stay in a place where I have to earn your family's basic decency every year." She didn't reply to that one. Her brother posted something cryptic on Instagram the same week. A picture of his watch with the caption, "Some people talk, some people grind." He was always louder after he'd been embarrassed. The house went on the market January 12th. By February 3rd, it was under contract. Clean offer. Cash. A young couple expecting twins. I wished them peace. The platform gained its 10th user by mid-February. Then 50. Then 100. I sent out no press release. No PR. No product hunt campaign. Just a private link and the same sentence in every message. No noise, just work. People like that. By March, I had a problem I hadn't expected. Growth. 2 VC firms reached out. I declined both. Ghostline wasn't a company. It was a revolt. I still worked alone. No office. No logo. Just me. A whiteboard. And the belief that if you build something people truly need, they'll find you. Melissa came by the apartment once in April. She looked tired. Not angry. Just unsure. "You really did it," she said, looking at the monitors. I didn't say anything. Didn't need to. She walked the room like she was visiting a museum. Touched nothing. Then turned to me. "Do you hate me?" she asked. "No," I said. "But I can't live like I'm a disappointment in my own home." She nodded once. Tried to say something. Then didn't. When she left, she paused in the doorway. "They're scared of you now," she said. "They don't understand how you did it." "That's fine," I said. "I didn't do it for them." It started with a blog post. Nothing flashy. Just a long-form piece on a mid-tier site called Code Signal Weekly. Title: The Invisible Platform 100 Engineers Swear By. Built by a guy you've never heard of. The writer was someone I'd worked with years ago. Name: Ellie Chan. Smart. Observant. Too good for the industry treadmill she was stuck on. She'd seen a Ghostline invite floating through a Discord server. Recognized my name. Asked for a call. I said no. She wrote the piece anyway. She didn't have the numbers. She didn't have screenshots. But what she had was better. A theory that's somewhere in the quiet, away from pitch decks and TED Talks. A working-class tech guy had quietly built a bunker for real builders. That people were flocking to it, and that it scared the hell out of the people who made money pretending they mattered. She called it the rebellion hiding in plain sight. The post went semi-viral. Not big enough for Bloomberg. Big enough for Twitter. My inbox went from 20 messages a day to 600. Some from engineers. Some from investors. Some from journalists wanting the exclusive. I ignored most of them, except one, a guy named Tarek out of Toronto, Python savant, ethical hacker, once banned from 5 platforms for refusing to work unpaid. He messaged me with no punctuation, no flattery, just, "Yo, Ghostline real? Need in." I onboard him. He brought 10 more. One of them was a woman named Sadia, front-end dev out of Lagos, who rebuilt half of Ghostline's dashboard in a single night just to prove she could. She was right. By April, Ghostline had 900 users, 400 active, 50 contracts running through a basic smart escrow I duct-taped together in Solidity. No marketing, no SEO, just whispers. And then came Jacob. He'd been quiet for a while, until he saw the blog post. And more importantly, saw Melissa share it. She posted it with 3 words. He never needed applause. That one hurt him. 2 days later, Jacob wrote his own post on LinkedIn. Long, overwritten, full of the kind of shallow venom insecure men mistake for sophistication. He called me a failed architect with a history of delusion. Claimed I was exploiting a network of desperate freelancers. Said I was building a platform destined for regulatory collapse. Threw in some passive-aggressive commentary about my abandonment of family values. It got some attention, mostly from his peers, other guys who only knew how to measure success by square footage and suits. I didn't respond. Didn't need to. 3 days later, an engineer at Stripe DM'd me asking if we could integrate Ghostline for contract payouts. 2 of the engineers copied on the thread were women I'd never met. One of them wrote, "We've been watching for a while. What you're doing matters." Jacob posted again, tried to pivot it into concern. "If what Thomas is doing is legit, I'll be the first to say I was wrong, but someone needs to ask the tough questions." That post got fewer likes. The funny thing about building something in silence is that the noise eventually comes to you. But by then, you're not afraid of it anymore. Melissa called again in May. She sounded different this time. Not tired, not defensive, just human. I read everything she said, even the bad stuff. "I didn't know you had all this in you." "You never asked," I said. "I want to come see it," she said. "Not the platform, you." I paused. "You sure you're not just curious what success looks like from the inside?" "No," she said. "I'm just tired of being around people who think it looks like a car lease and a golf membership." I said okay. She came by the next week, sat in my apartment, watched me onboard a group of Ukrainian engineers displaced by the war. We didn't talk much that night, but it wasn't awkward. It was quiet, and that felt like progress. It happened fast, too fast to feel real at first. The first letter came in June. Heavy envelope, expensive stationery, a cease and desist from a firm called Baywell Legal representing a company named Talent Stacks. The letter accused me of unauthorized contracting practices, labor misclassification, operating a digital marketplace without compliance licensing, and intentionally damaging the reputation of competing entities. In other words, Ghostline was working. Talent Stacks was the shiny VC darling, polished, overstaffed, heavily branded. Their founder wore hoodies on stage at tech expos while boasting about disrupting the freelance economy. They took 40% commission, called it service optimization. What we were doing, direct contract splits, no middleman, no profile farming. It terrified them because it worked, and they couldn't control it. I didn't hire a lawyer. I emailed 1 paragraph back. "No violations of any law have occurred. Your client is free to build something better, but intimidation doesn't scale." They didn't reply. They leaked instead. A story ran in TechBloom. Anonymous sources accusing Ghostline of creating a black market for unregulated labor, sheltering banned contractors, undermining fair wage structures in global markets. It was the kind of smear written by someone who'd never worked a real gig in their life. Just regurgitated PR from a scare boardroom. My inbox exploded. Some users panicked. Others doubled down. One user, an AI engineer named Alana, started a counter thread. She posted her contract, her payment, her rating, and wrote, "Funny how the people who never had to fight for paychecks are suddenly experts on fairness." That thread went viral. 5,000 shares. 3 mainstream outlets picked it up. And suddenly, The smear had the opposite effect. People wanted in. More than ever. Ghostline hit 3,000 users in 10 days. Investors begged for a meeting. I declined all of them. That's when they made it personal. A second story dropped. This one from a known hit piece site. Dug into my past. Old job records. A failed first business from 2012. One ex-coworker anonymously claiming I was paranoid and rigid. And then Jacob. He added fuel with a tweet. Success built on secrecy always hides a collapse. He tagged talent stacks. They liked it. Melissa sent me a screenshot. No words. Just a sigh emoji. I responded with a link. Not a defense. Not a rant. Just the Ghostline codebase. Open sourced. That broke them. The narrative shifted again. This wasn't some greedy bro building a clone app. This was a movement. Transparent. Built by the people using it. Every line of code visible. Forkable. Auditable. I gave it away, but it only made it stronger. That night, Melissa called again. Her voice was quieter than usual. They think you're crazy, she said. You could have sold this for millions. Then they would have owned it, I said. And we'd be right back where we started. She hesitated. I miss who you used to be. I'm still in my set. Just not quiet anymore. She didn't know what to say. So she said good night. And I sat alone, watching a map of live users blink into life across 5 continents. One man, one laptop, no boardroom, no brand deals, just code and conviction. The next day, Tarek messaged me. Yo, you just broke capitalism, bro. I told him, not just fixed contracts. It was supposed to be a hit job, a live debate. Techline Weekly's Sunday special, aired on cable, streamed everywhere, marketed like a boxing match. One side, David, founder of Ghostline, the rebel coder from nowhere. Other side, Lana Reeve, CEO of Talent Stacks, tech visionary, Forbes cover, angel investor, board member, blah, blah, blah. They gave us a 5-minute warning. Green room smelled like disinfectant and ego. Lana arrived flanked by handlers. White blazer. Perfect teeth. She didn't look at me. Didn't need to. I sat alone. Hoodie. Plain jeans. No notes. No team. Just a brain and a blood pressure I could actually feel. I didn't want to be here. But Tarek said, you built a weapon now. They want to make sure you don't know how to use it. So I showed up. The moderator was polished. Friendly in that manufactured way. He gave me a smile that didn't reach his eyes and said, let's keep it sharp but civil, all right. Lana laughed. Don't worry, I don't punch down. The cameras rolled. The lights went up. And it began. Lana opened strong. She had practiced. Said Ghostline was a dangerous experiment built with no oversight. That an unregulated marketplace undermines both wage protections and quality control. That anonymous hiring was a backdoor for exploitation and wage theft. I nodded politely. Let her finish. Then they turned to me. Thomas, your response. I leaned forward. No smile. No fluff. Ghostline doesn't exploit freelancers, it removes the people who do. We don't need regulation from companies who take 40% and call it innovation. We verify contracts, not resumes, because work should speak louder than networking. Lana cut in. But without transparency, there's no accountability, Thomas. How do you protect users? By letting them own their contracts, I said. By building a system where no one needs to ask permission to earn. She fired back. That's naive and reckless. You're opening the door to abuse. I looked straight into the camera. I'm opening the door to people who've been locked out by platforms that pretend they're protecting workers while milking them dry. She shifted, got a little sharper. Mention my past, my failed business, my lack of credentials. I nodded again. I failed before, I said. That's how I learned not to build another trap. You don't have to like me. You just have to look at the math. The moderator jumped in. Thomas, there's concern that Ghostline is becoming too powerful without any checks. What do you say to that? Power doesn't scare me, I said. Silence does. Power with no voice underneath. It is what built these exploitative systems in the first place. Then I paused, looked off camera, right where I knew Melissa was sitting. Front row, hands in her lap, eyes locked on mine. They don't fear Ghostline because it's dangerous, I said. They fear it because it works without them. The air changed. Even Lana noticed it. When the segment ended, The moderator thanked us, shook hand with her, nodded at me. Backstage, Melissa came over. You buried her, she whispered. I wasn't trying to, I said. I just stopped pretending they were right. Then came the twist. Jacob showed up, not backstage, not with cameras. He met me outside, beside the lot where they parked all the rented Teslas for guests. He was pacing, tense, like someone trying to make a decision that already made itself. Look, he said, I didn't come to fight. I waited. You embarrassed me, man, he said, and maybe I deserved it. That caught me. But I watched tonight, he said, and I saw something I didn't understand before. I said nothing. You weren't playing their game. You were building a new one. Then he looked down. Something cracked. You gave us that house, he said, and we made you feel like a squatter in your own life. I let the silence stretch. Let it sting. Then I said, you didn't make me feel like anything, Jacob. I let you. He nodded once, hands in his jacket, walked away without asking for anything. That was the best part. Melissa drove me back. She didn't say much, but the way she looked at me wasn't the way she used to. It wasn't pity, or guilt, or confusion. It was curiosity, the rare kind, the kind that leads people back to themselves. That night, Ghostline doubled its user base. 2,000 new signups, all word of mouth. And me, I sat in the dark, watching the numbers blink, the world turning, not waiting for permission anymore. Growth changes everything, even the things you swore it wouldn't touch. Ghostline was now an open protocol, decentralized, user-controlled, no shareholders, no CEO, but people still looked to me like I was the architect of something sacred. And maybe that's where the risk started. Because when you build something people believe in, they'll follow you even when you didn't ask them to. That month, Tarek spun up a Ghostline fork just for emergency crisis relief. Contract work for displaced refugees. Paid instantly. No borders. No noise. He didn't even ask me for permission. Just messaged. Yo, hope you don't mind. I'm saving lives. I didn't mind. Alana launched a code mentorship program under the same name. Sadia translated the onboarding interface into 4 more languages. People started calling it a movement. And that's when the venture world circled back again. Harder, sweeter, more subtle this time. A firm called Ash & Stone emailed me directly. The kind that used phrases like stewardship and elevation. They offered advisory roles, equity options, a quiet partnership. We don't want to own Ghostline, they said. We want to help it grow. I said no. Again. But this time I hesitated first. Because the version of me from a year ago, the man who walked out of that Christmas dinner, he'd never have paused. But now, there were more people, more eyes, more weight. Melissa saw it too. She'd been spending more time around the apartment. Not as a guest, not as a wife, just as someone trying to understand the person she used to think she knew. One night, she brought over the old photos. Us in Barcelona, laughing into a bottle of wine. Back when ambition wasn't a dividing line. She sat across from me. No rings, no anger, just memory. You ever think about who you were before this, she asked. All the time, I said. She looked down, fingers tracing the edge of the photo. You're stronger now, she said. But harder too. Had to be, I said. She nodded, then asked the question I didn't see coming. If I want to come back, would you let me? I didn't answer right away. Not because I didn't want to, but because I knew she didn't just mean the apartment or the relationship. She meant the story, the journey, the version of me she'd once left behind. Only if you're not here to fix me, I said. I'm not broken anymore. She nodded slowly, didn't cry, didn't beg, just looked at me like she finally saw the line I'd drawn. Not between us, but between who I was and who I refused to become. Later that week, Jacob emailed me. Short, polite, uncharacteristically respectful. Subject line, no games this time. Message, if you ever want to build something in real estate that doesn't screw people, I'm listening. I didn't reply. Not yet. But I saved it. Because maybe people can change. If they watch long enough. And finally stop talking. 1 year later. Same house. Same dining room. But everything else had changed. They invited me. Which shocked me more than I'll admit. An actual invite. Not a passive-aggressive group text. Not a guilt-laced request from Melissa. An honest-to-God phone call from her mother. Asking me to join. Christmas dinner. You don't have to stay long, she said. We just thought it'd be good to have you back for a bit. I asked if Jacob would be there. She said yes. But he's different now. I didn't believe her. But I said I'd come. I wore the same jacket from last year. Intentionally. Same boots. Same watch. But this time, I brought nothing to prove. The table was already full when I walked in. Melissa stood up, gave me a quiet smile. Not warm, not cold, just real. Her father nodded. Her mother offered me wine. And Jacob, he stood and stayed standing. Thomas, he said, loud enough for the room to pause. Before we sit down, I want to say something. The air tightened. Forks stopped moving. Last year, I disrespected you, he said. And for a long time before that, too. He looked around the table like he needed to remind them all that this wasn't just between us. You were never the failure, Thomas. You just made the rest of us uncomfortable by not needing to be loud about what you were building. He looked right at me, eyes clear, no grin, no smirk. I've watched you turn silence into power, and I've spent a year asking myself why I ever needed to tear that down. So I'm saying this now, not because it fixes everything, but because it's the least I owe you. I was wrong. I nodded. No need to clap. No need to smile. Just a small, quiet, thank you. We sat, and for once, dinner felt like food and not performance. They asked me questions, not loaded ones, real ones, about Ghostline, about the mentorships, about how I'd kept it all together through the firestorm. I answered openly, not to impress, just to inform. Melissa watched me the way people watch fire. Not scared, just drawn in, like she wasn't sure what it would become. But she knew it was alive. After dessert, her father pulled me aside. You gave us something we never thank you for, he said. I don't know if we deserve another chance, but if you ever need anything from us, just ask. I needed this, I said. Not the apology, the clarity. He smiled, soft, regretful, but proud in a way that finally felt earned. When I left, Melissa walked me to the door. You're not coming back, are you? She asked. Not to this version of it, I said. She nodded. Not sad, not angry, just understanding. Ghostline's still growing, I said. But now I know I don't have to disappear to build something big. You were never small, she said. We just weren't big enough to see you. We stood there, in the cold, same as last year. But no heat this time, no rage, just quiet. Earned. I walked back to my car, started the engine, checked my messages. One from Tarek. Yo bro, we just hit 10K users. You still want to keep it low-key, or are we dropping the documentary? I smiled. Type back. Drop it. Let them see what quiet men build when nobody's watching. And I drove off. No applause. No spotlight. Just the sound of traction. And a man finally on his own road. Unapologetically whole.